Welcome to part 3 of Scene Trivia, 100 and I lost count useless things you may not know about Teslagrad, where we show you a little something about every scene of the game. As usual, we recommend you watch the first 2 parts if you haven't already, links in the description below, because we'll talk about things we've shown in previous episodes. We good? Perfect, let's go. Furnace, again. Yeah, we know, we already did this scene in part 2, but here's a bonus round. So, we previously talked about Norwegian text here and there, but we didn't translate Furnace's runes, because yes, Furnace has engravings, but they're really hard to see, half hidden behind its jaw. Here is the sprite for Furnace's head, and the writings are on each cheek. The left one says oven, and the right one is simply the name Furnace. But these runes are unique. All of the other occurrences of Norwegian writing in Teslagrad use Rain Games' fictional alphabet, which is a mix of Nordic runes and Latin letters, but the runes on Furnace are an Elder Futhark, which is a real runic alphabet used centuries ago in Scandinavia. Why do these engravings use such an old alphabet? Is it a subtle, ingenious Easter egg to indicate that Furnace was built by an ancient civilization? Well, no. We asked Ole Ivar Rudi, the art director at Rain Games, and he said that when they decided to use a custom alphabet, they just forgot to change Furnace. I don't know about you, but personally, I'll stick with the ancient civilization explanation. Oh, and while we're at it, this poster from the intro cutscene also has a completely different alphabet, which is neither the one from Rain Games nor Futhark. And we have no clue what it says, so if you have an idea, please tell us in the comments below. Seriously, Dioxymore, are we really one of those channels that's going to beg for comments? Why don't you just ask them to like, follow, and subscribe while you're at it, and put a big red arrow on the thumbnail? You didn't really put a big red arrow on the thumbnail, did you? Cooling room. The blink boots are the only item in the game to have 2 different icons. The first one is used in-game when you grab the item, and the other is shown on your save file. Here's a side-by-side comparison. All of the other items use the same icon for both cases. Cages. The gimmick of this room is that you can blink through the cage bars, but did you know you can also blink inside any part of the cages, even the top or bottom parts? This can lead to some interesting results. Also, at the entrance of the room, we can find signs that warn the player about the upcoming danger. Beware of the dark, danger of grooves, and monsters may appear. And it's the perfect time to tell you that the name Gru means horror in Norwegian. Magnet flies. In this scene, you have to navigate in the dark, with little magnet flies as your only light source. Here's what this room looks like when we turn the lights on. Grooves. In our video about the enemies of the game, we showed you that there is a trigger preventing the grooves from crossing the middle of their prison, so you probably already knew that. But did you know that with some precise timing, you can get eaten by 2 grooves simultaneously by touching them both at the same frame? Pretty gruesome, don't you think? Waterworks. This room is one of the few rooms that speedrunners never enter, regardless of category, because it requires slow blinking to reach the top of the room and has no other purpose than getting the player used to the blink mechanic. But we can imagine what this room would look like if speedrunners had to go through it. Any percent and 100% runners would still do the room normally, but New Game Plus runners would crush it like this. Roots. If you come back to this room with the Tesla staff, you can laser the blocked entrance to see that the collision doesn't match the visuals. Heartwood. With a very precise blink, you can get through the electricity and reach this cool little spot. Nothing to do here except dying, but it's always fun to go to places that not a lot of people have reached. Act 1. When Tesla Kid blinks, the game creates a hitbox to check if he blinked through a scroll or a trigger. This hitbox is projected behind Teslakid, so when we blink and turn backwards on the same frame, it's possible to displace the blink hitbox. This is our favorite speedrunning trick, the Extended Blink Hitbox, or EBH. We use this either to avoid triggers or to remotely activate them. A funny example of EBH can be used in the Act 1 theater. When the show starts, the music and the animations are synchronized. It starts with a little music box. Then the music becomes a little more dynamic when the barbarian army attacks. But if you use EBH near the exit, the blink hitbox will touch the tower for 1 frame. Since the game thinks Teslakid is in the tower, it will mute the theater music. But Teslakid is considered in Act 1 immediately afterward, so the show continues. It's then possible to trigger the theater music again to watch the barbarian army attacking on a cute music box theme. Tower, Faradaeus floor. If you open a door and use the cloak to fly high enough and come back quickly to the door, it will close on you. Depending on the door and your position, you will either clip inside the door, get propelled at high speed, or clip through the ground. Storage. If you touch the upper checkpoint of the room and then die, the camera will sometimes incorrectly display the tower instead of the storage room. Act 2. Do you recognize this banner? No? Well, if we hack the camera, we can see that it's the same banner from the cooling room with the blink tutorial on it. Since we don't need to blink here, the developers used the camera boundaries to reuse this asset. Maze. Another camera hack. This time let's take a look under the maze. This strange thing is what developers call a tile map. It's an image of all the different tiles that are used to create the levels, but we have no idea what this one is doing here since a tile map is never used as is. Winter Garden. Have you ever noticed that winged character carved in the tree? It's a little decal of Otis from the game Owlboy, created by Simon Anderson from D-Pad Studio in 2016. D-Pad Studio is an indie game company based in Bergen, Norway, the same city Rain Games is from, so it's a cool little reference from one Viking studio to another. But if you look at the Teslagrad leaderboards, you can find a speedrunner named Pretty Frenchman, who did his internship at Rain Games in 2016, and whose name is Simon Anderson. But it's not the same Simon Anderson, because this one is the creator of Pale Knight. I don't know what's going on in Norway, but if your name is Simon Anderson and you want to become a game developer, Bergen seems to be the way to go. Oh, and of course we strongly recommend playing both Owlboy and Pale Knight, 2 amazing 2D platformers. And speaking of Norwegian, Winter Garden also holds one of the big mysteries of the game with this strange tombstone. The Norwegian text on it reads, "My dear wife, the king's sister, killed by barbarians in the Great War." A giant lore bomb if you ask me. Mural. There are a lot of places in the game where walls or floors are misaligned, creating some odd geometry. In fact, there are so many that if we were lazy, we could just find 100 of them and call it a day. But unfortunately, we're not. So let's show you one good example here, where the wall and the ceiling are misaligned, and you can wall jump infinitely. Winter Garden, again. Every scene in the game can be either active or inactive. When Teslakid enters a scene, it activates, which means that every object inside it activates. Let's take the spawners for example. When their scene is inactive, they don't spawn anything, but when Teslakid enters, they awaken and start spawning stuff. It's the Teslagrad equivalent of only working when your boss is looking. A lot of other objects in the game do something when their scene activates. Magnet flies start flying, magnetic blocks start moving, but scrolls also have a very specific task when they awaken. They check if they've already been collected, and if so, they self-destruct, so you can't collect them twice.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
But scroll number 15 in Winter Garden is placed near the edge of its scene. And this means that with an EBH, it's possible to trick the game into thinking that Tesla Kid has left the scene for one frame and came back the frame after, right where the scroll is supposed to appear. By doing so, it's possible to collect the scroll before it self-destructs, which will trigger the notification in the top right corner. Ventilation. Another trick that speedrunners use is called the moonwalk. Despite rarely being used, it is crucial to know that it is the core of a lot of other movement tech. And in this scene, you can do the longest moonwalk of the game, so enjoy the beauty of this magnificent piece of Teslagrad technology. Winter Garden, again. All of the out of bounds we've shown so far in this series were quite difficult to do, and maybe you'd like to know a simple setup to experience them, so let's show you the simplest way to go out of bounds, and also the very first one that was discovered. Just grab this branch, look back, and blink. That's it! It's also possible to land inside the tree to discover some hidden platforms behind the leaves. And if you stay here long enough, the game will have time to load the bottom part of Winter Garden for you to drop safely. Thank you all for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and see you very soon for the fourth part of this series.